What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Mindy in Scream 6 and do a similar thing to her as I did with Sam, kind of talk about expectations, what I think is going to happen with her. I have a feeling this series will get more involved the further we go so that I fix past mistakes and stuff. One thing I want to focus on very specifically with Mindy is, will she die? I want to make that kind of the central theme because she is definitely a character that's up in the air. I think when you talk about Sam, and actually we said this in the video with Sam, a preview of her is that there's no way she's going to die, right? At least in my opinion, and it just seems pretty obvious of that point. But for Mindy, it's definitely more up in the air. And the more we continue to see of this movie, and every day I make these videos, maybe we get a new TV spot or we see 1.5 extra seconds of footage. Well, the more we continue to see, in fact, I think from the last video I made to this video, we got just that little extra scene where Sam and Tara and now Chad are being chased, right? We see that just little extra second, and Chad's at the back of the line, and it definitely, he turns around. I think whenever this chase thing is going to happen, Chad goes nuts. And Chad's very important, I think, to this Mindy discussion, right? Because it looks like Chad's going nuts there. Looks like Chad's going to do everything possible to kind of keep Ghostface away. We know Chad's going to beat Ghostface up just a little bit towards the end, right? We see Tara screaming and all that stuff. Yet again, this video isn't a Chad-specific video. But the reason I bring that up is, well, you have to look at who's there. You have to look at why Chad is acting the way that he's acting, right? Or at least I do when we talk about Mindy. Now, in my opinion, there's only two ways I feel like this is going to go. The first way is that Mindy is going to get, and this is obvious, she's going to get injured during that ladder scene, okay? And I think we all know that, right? Her arm's injured and definitely seems like she struggles getting across. Now, I do think she gets across, and I don't know, where everybody else is on their predictions or what they assume to be true and stuff. I do think she makes it across, and I do think, probably Anika there is going to go. So what happens after that is very confusing to me, right? Because the train thing, I do think probably has to come before that. Maybe there's some people that think it comes after. Maybe I've seen that before, and I'm just getting so many things confused in my head. But I guess where I'm at is this. I think after that scene, and it's a long, right? This is probably like a 5-10 minute thing. After that is over, you can only do two things with Mindy. Number one, you put her in the hospital. And I've come up with this idea probably 2, 3, 4 weeks ago where I said, well, one of the reasons Mindy may not be in the final act, and you could say this with Kirby or Gale, an easy way out that you could write into the movie is that because of injuries, they're put in the hospital, right? Now, since then, we actually do know Kirby's there. We don't really know placement and, what one thing happens, I guess, before the other thing, right? But now we do know for a fact Kirby is there. Gale isn't, at least that we've seen so far. So either they're hiding her or, again, it's a similar situation to Mindy where, well, what are you going to do? So Mindy either goes to the hospital, I'm going to kind of predict, for her arm, for her injury. And by doing that, you put somebody in a hospital in a big city, right? New York City, you're out. You're not in danger. You're okay. And you remove them from the final act. I've talked about this before. When it comes down to it, and I think this is kind of obvious, but it should have been obvious even before, it has to be a small group that faces off against Ghostface in the monologue. It just has to be. Now, for this movie, it seems like it's almost 2 stages, maybe a little bit different than, maybe not, but maybe a little bit different than past movies where it's Tara and Sam, back-to-back, Ghostfaces on both their sides. Something happens, and then it certainly seems like the final showdown, maybe monologue, maybe not, is 1v1, is Sam versus a Ghostface. Now, again, why do I bring all this up? Well, I've been saying that for a while. You have to have a limited amount of people at the monologue portion of the movie. But where does everybody else go? Well, you don't have to kill them off. In fact, historically, you just find clever ways to remove them. And Mindy and Chad both were actually victims, right? They're products of that strategy in the last movie. So Mindy is removed from she isn't technically, like, whatever you consider the final act. I know when Amber says, welcome to the final act, if you consider that the final act, then no, Mindy is technically not, necessarily a part of that. But, from Mindy's injury on, she's out. And so she's not part of the monologue, chases, fights, all that stuff. But she's not dead. You just removed her. Chad, same thing. Now, Chad, that certainly seemed dead, right? But obviously they didn't do that. So I honestly assume you're going to do the same thing here. You, of course, need to always come up with different ways of it happening and shift the placement a little bit, right? And when you have more characters, it's going to be even more hard, I'd imagine. But that's something you're going to have to do. Mindy is going to have to be removed. Now, like Randy has been a part, right? Technically in the first movie, he's somewhat a part of the final act, but that's really the only example that I can think of off the top of my head where that really happens, right? 4, Kirby's even eliminated before, and then you just really got Sydney, V, Jill, and Charlie, right? So like all these movies, this happens. So Mindy for me is either, she's for sure going to get injured, right? And then she'll either go to the hospital, or there's one other option. Now, I don't know the placement, right? I get confused with the placement, but it is possible that maybe she is in the shrine or something happens in between that we just haven't seen yet, in between the ladder sequence and then the shrine sequence, and Mindy goes there. I think it's very possible she dies. I'll be flat honest. Now, circling back to the Chad thing, because he definitely seems like he has rage, right? He definitely does. Now, what's interesting, I actually like this so much. It's not necessarily one-dimensional. We've talked about some of these characters not being kind of like deep enough, and one of the coolest things with Chad, at least so far, is what we've seen of him so far. You could probably attribute his rage to a couple different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be just one. He clearly cares for Tara. So him going out of his way to defend them, right? Again, he's last in that chase line, and he definitely seems, he almost seems like he's throwing something at Ghostface. We do see him kind of like beat up Ghostface in that first trailer. Like he's giving it his all. He absolutely is. And by the way, I love that, right? But I mean, on top of that, why is he doing that? Is he doing it to protect somebody that he technically loves, right? If he loves Tara and maybe he likes Sam, right? You could do it for that, but it's a combination. He could be doing it for that, and this person that's chasing them and that he's beating up, they killed his sister, right? That would be enormous. And we've talked about this. We talked about this as early as when 5 ended. That one of the best things you could do, I'd argue, one of the best things you could do for either of these twins is kill the other. I really believe that, because then you're going to see, hopefully, if the writing's good, you're going to see a side of them that you don't see too much or at all, in a lot of these Scream movies. This kind of like reflection of who you lost. And normally, because it's not necessarily too tied to them, right? Sometimes it is, but not all the time. So I really think losing Mindy would send Chad off into, at least for right now, like a rage, like an absolute rage. And then, if he carries over into 7, he can kind of continue with that memory and continue to evolve as a character. So I do like the idea of Mindy dying. I'll be honest. Is it too Scream 2-like? Yeah. I mean, you'd be killing Randy again, just like you did in 2. So I would be worried a little bit that you're repeating like the blueprint, the basic blueprint. But I mean, if you do it differently and all this, I mean, I would give them a little break depending on how it's done. I'll be honest. But I really think it's possible. So that's really where I'm at now in terms of like the rest with Mindy, right? Hopefully she gets at least 1 or 2 nice back and forths with Kirby. I think that'd be really fun. Just continue that energy. I talk about her here and there. She's not my favorite character from 5. I think she does definitely a serviceable job. When she shines, she's really good, right? That the requel monologue that she has in 5 is extremely good. It is. And obviously, it's doing what other things have done before. It's giving her that monologue, but she's got a lot of spunk. She's got a lot of energy. And, as we have learned with Randy and characters like that down the line, it is important to have characters that talk to us, right? I mean, it's always kind of been said. Now, if this movie moves away from that, which it does seem like it's going to at least a little bit, are those characters necessary? Well, maybe they thought that in 2, right? And then when it comes to 3, what do you do? So I think no matter what, you got to have a character kind of talk to us for the next one. But one of the things I have said is that a lot of these characters do not act the same, but they do have similar qualities. Like when I was talking about in 5, Wes was every bit as smart as like anybody else, right? Wes was very practical in what he, knew they had to do, what he knew they couldn't do, all those kind of things. That kind of surprised me because he's like that. Chad was like that in a way. Mindy was kind of the most like, pushed up to the front version of them. But they were those 3, really, at least those 3. And even Tara, I would argue to an extent. So I do think going forward, if you kill Mindy, are you killing like the Randy character? Are you killing that Randy element permanently? I'd actually argue no. Now, like Wes is gone, yeah, but Chad, I think, can actually do it. And then you can maybe even mix in someone like a Tara that I think could do it as well. So I don't think you're losing everything like you would have. And even in 2, I guess you got like Mickey kind of knew his stuff as now, it turns out, right? But like for this, Chad wouldn't be Ghostface. Tara probably wouldn't be Ghostface, right? So you know what I mean? I don't think you'd lose that element as much. So I'll leave it there. I do lean more towards Mindy dying. I will save it because I'm going to do like a final predictions kind of streak of videos in the next week or two. I'll formally predict it and announce it there, what I think will happen. But I actually do get the sense that she very easily could die. Will she die? I think it's very possible. Either that or she's got to be taken to the hospital to get out of the third act. Of course, it is possible she's there and they just haven't shown it. That's very possible. I'll just kind of go with my gut on this one is all. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I'm sorry that I can't look at it. Well, here's what I will say. If you guys didn't know, I made a new Discord server, brand new from the ground up. We actually have a Scream community over there. So if you want to talk no spoilers, spoilers gets you banned. So if you want to talk non-spoiler Scream stuff, join the Discord. I'll leave a link in the description. Maybe I'll even leave it as a pinned comment. So if you guys want to check out the Discord, talk about Scream, talk about other games and movies, we have all that there. Okay, so I'll leave that in the description and a pinned comment. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.